Today I want to talk about five-star offensive tackle Tristan Leigh, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to talk about five-star offensive tackle Tristan Leigh, who is scheduled to visit Ohio State University on the weekend that they open their Big Ten play against Nebraska. This is also a really good time for Ohio State recruits and Ohio State fans because after a long battle in which they made themselves very clear, we don't care that it's a pandemic. We're watching other teams get to play football. We understand that there are protocols that we have to meet and there are benchmarks that we have to meet to play football, that we want to play football. It's also a tremendous win for Ohio State because we're in a dead period. We're in an unprecedented dead period. The dead period has been extended since March 11th through to January 1. That means we're going to go 7 months without any official visits or coaches' evaluations in person or in-person recruiting. In-home visits are gone. Everything is being done via Zoom, FaceTime, and the kids taking the initiative to visit these places. So for these visits that are unofficial, you're going to have to make your own agenda and make sure that you are trying to see the campus in the same ways that a regular student might want to see the campus. There's also the added bit of wearing a mask in public that I know is inconvenient for some, but is necessary as we continue to try to fight this thing. But I also think that it speaks volumes that Tristan still wants to visit Ohio State, even as just taking a look at how the crystal balls are going. He's an LSU lean, and he's been an LSU lean basically since this summer, even though he visited Norman in Oklahoma with Caleb Williams and others. He's trying to make sure that he gets all of this in. Now, in his top five, we have basically narrowed it to Oklahoma, LSU, Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State. Any one of those is good for an offensive lineman. Any one of those is going to turn out. But only one of those feels like the place where he and his family actually wanted to be. Now, in LSU having the lead here, I think this is good. I think Tristan Leigh being able to go through his paces and understand that he doesn't have to actually make a decision until February, though he will probably make a decision before then, is good and interesting. But also add this in here. As we talk about the SEC, as we talk about it as the dominant conference in college football, the dominant league in college football, consider that J.C. Latham and Tommy Brockermeyer and now Amarius Mims have all committed to SEC schools, with J.C. Latham and Tommy Brockermeyer both committing to Alabama and, of course, Mims to Georgia. If Tristan Leigh were to commit to LSU, that is all four of the top four offensive tackles in the country choosing to commit to SEC schools. That's ridiculous. And that is why we continue to talk about the SEC as lording over the rest of college football. When you are looking at the positions that move the line of scrimmage, they're destroying people. The defensive linemen and the offensive linemen choose that place, or they choose Clemson. Now, Ohio State's going to have something to say about that as Paris Johnson's up there, Wyatt Davis is returning, and I expect them to put together an outstanding season if they don't have any games canceled. I also think that this 21 class still has the opportunity to be one of the all-timers, with them adding guys like Travion Henderson, like Reed Carrico, like adding guys like, my goodness, Pickerton Norse, Jack Sawyer, Kyle McCord, Marvin Harrison Jr. We can keep going here, and that's kind of the point. So if Tristan Leigh gets into that Buckeye culture just a little bit, it's demonstrated that it can have a lasting effect on most. Tunmise Adeleye, who was committed to that class, did not have that effect. He chose to reopen his recruitment. You also need to take into account who the tailbacks are, right? Because offensive linemen want to block for good tailbacks and good quarterbacks. You know who the quarterbacks are going to be. Jack Miller and C.J. Stroud are going to be good. I don't think that both of them are going to finish their careers at Ohio State. I think one is probably going to grad transfer, if not going to the transfer portal anyway. And then you got to look at who is behind guys like Trey Sermon and Master Teague. And then you look at Travion Henderson, who you're coming in with. Then you're looking at Evan Pryor, who you're coming in with. And that makes it a little bit more intoxicating. I think when you look at guys like Ben Chrisman, who are also leading this Ohio State recruiting class, I want to see what happens when the recruits get a hold of Tristan Leigh and whether or not they can sway him to perhaps think that maybe Ohio State's the place for him to be. Maybe it's not the place that, LSU is. That said, I thought that J.C. Latham might have ended up at Ohio State, and I think a lot of Ohio State fans would have told you that as well, going back to last November when Latham was on site for Ohio State versus Penn State and watched that offensive line run the ball 90 yards down the field without taking an offensive snap that ended in a pass and go punch it in for 6 against Micah Parsons and a really good defense in the Nittany Lions. The other aspect of this to take into account is, what are you doing at the next level? What are you doing when it comes to developing offensive linemen in the way that, well, quite frankly, Ohio State develops defensive linemen? And while it's not necessarily the same track record, nothing is. The way that Larry Johnson Sr. has developed defensive linemen is ridiculous. I mean, you know about the guys that are Chase Young, that are the Bosa brothers. You know about Draymond Jones, but you can keep going. And that's the point, right? I think as an offensive lineman, you also get to say, no, I face the best defensive lineman in the country, period. Check the receipts. Look at where the defensive linemen that I face in practice every day are getting drafted. How much better that makes me as an offensive lineman. To know that there are guys on that offensive line now that had to do battle with Chase Young all of last year, right? That have had to figure out how to block guys like Jonathan Cooper, block guys like Tyreek Smith, block all of these dudes that we expect to achieve great heights at the next level. I think if you're Tristan Leigh, that's something to keep in mind too. As the number 11 overall prospect in the 247 Sports Composite, and as one of the top 4 offensive tackles in this entire class. Also in there, I'm really interested to see how this goes in Fairfax, Virginia, because Virginia has put out some outstanding 21 prospects. Like Tony Grimes reclassified to 2020, but he's from Virginia. Travion Henderson, of course, is from Virginia. And now we're talking about Tristan Leigh, who's from Fairfax. And the understanding that if you go into Virginia to get dudes, Damon Harmon ends up committing to Oklahoma, I should add that as well, you're going to be pretty good. And that Tidewater in particular has put out guys. And let's not forget that, remember the Titans, Alexandria, Virginia, that's where T.C. Williams High School was. I want to know what we're going to learn from this group of kids that is coming out of Virginia in this 21 class. And Tristan Leigh is a big part of that. And if he ends up at LSU, like, say, a Naquan Brown, yeah, we also know that Ed Orgeron should be good, but they got a battle on their hands. They got to grow some kids up in a hurry because this is going to be a down year for them, and they're going to have to try to come back strong. And they seem to be able to do that just taking a look at the recruiting. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.